We're back. This is another week of predictions. We're in Perth, Saturday, September 27th. We're going to be in RAC Arena watching a UFC Fight Night Australia card. It will be headlined by Carlos Oberg and Dominic Reyes. I love Australia, man. It's home of city kickboxing. These are like the OG fighting nerds. I don't care who does it. I need a haka at the weigh-ins. Do you remember the Shane Young haka clip? Where bro literally walked up and he was like, Waki PT ooh wah wah. And then he finished and he just locked in immediately and was like, and then faced off with his opponent. And Dana White was in between him, Shane Young, and the guy that he was fighting that time. And he was just like, just try not to laugh. He looked like freaking Speed whenever the guy was like, my mom is kind of homeless and I need this. Man, I don't know. Whenever I think about Australia, though, I always think about the movie Kangaroo Jack. They used to do reruns of this like film on a Cartoon Network. I don't even remember the plot of the movie. Maybe it's worth going back and revisiting and watching it again. I think that the kangaroo spoke English, but he had an Australian accent. I thought it was fun and whimsical. So yeah, man, this is Haka week, dude. Forget what you heard, bro. I think that boy, Kai Car France, his real name is Kai Wari. And he was like crying like in one of those interviews where he was talking about his heritage because like he was ashamed of it and he like wanted to be called James. Nah, bro, you Kai Wari. Come on, man. Like, I need to see that Haka, bro. I'm so sad he's not fighting on this event so we don't get one of those beautiful... I can't. Alright, so the first fight we got Brando Pericic versus Elisha Ellison. I was doing research into both fighters. Elijah Ellison is a policeman, or he was in the year 2020 before he started fighting. Brando Pericic, this is a guy from City Kickboxing. We're going to be seeing a lot of City Kickboxing fighters or dudes who are affiliated with those fighters like Volkanovski. I'm not sure if he exclusively trains with Eugene Behrman, but Colby Thicknesse is on this card. That's like one of Volk's proteges. Brando Pericic, this guy is Croatian, and if we know something about heavyweights and being Croatian, that's something that's going to make you better at fighting, and that's just like inherent. If you're a Croatian guy and you weigh over 205 pounds, 206 pounds, there's a good chance that if you put on some gloves, you would just start mixing shit and you wouldn't even need to like do any type of training. It's just in your blood. The one fight that I could find on Fight Pass for Brando Pericic was him fighting some blob in this promotion called Shuriken Fight Series. He was dominating the clinch. He got nut shot twice, landed an inside trip with double unders, landed some ground and pound from there, and then the guy gave up his back and he sunk in a belly down RNC on this blob that he was fighting. He looked pretty good while he was doing it. Elijah Ellison's only been fighting for 2 years leading up until this point. This fight was supposed to happen on week 3 of this season of Dana White's Contender Series. Elijah Ellison, he calls himself the Snack Panther. This dude's fighter nickname is the Snack Panther because he's a bigger guy. And he's of African-American descent. The way that I'm looking at it, Elijah Ellison, it's like he's a 205er who's not really dialed in. Not to the point of, you know, like Dante Johnson, that guy who we saw fight on the Contender Series. I think maybe even in that week that they were supposed to fight. He's like going to be a middleweight now, Dante Johnson, the manlet. But I mean, dude, this guy, if he just focused a little bit, he could probably make it down to 185 as well. Elijah Ellison, he's not a blob. And I think he's going to lose this fight off the strength of not having the physical attributes to go band for band with Brando Pericic in the stand-up or in the grappling. Just think about the way that, like, Martin Buday versus Uran Satibaldiev, whenever Satibaldiev tried to go up to heavyweight and fight there against Martin Buday. You don't even need to be, like, that technically skilled. If you're just bigger than your opponent at 265, that's going to bode well for you in the long run. It's going to make it so that you're just winning by default. Pericic could demonstrate a pretty solid bag of skills, though, since he is Croatian. I'd never put that past him. And he trains with a really good camp. He has a bunch of photos of him with Volkanovski and also Israel Adesanya. He's a city kickboxing fighter, so we'll see how this one goes. I think that betting that he would win is a pretty safe pick. I'm going to say that he gets this done via round 2 TKO, and we might get a new heavyweight prospect out of it, God willing. Next is Michelle Montague versus Luana Carolina, or Luana Carolina versus Michelle Montague. Montague, all my Rainbow Six Siege players out there. This is going to happen at women's bantamweight, and dude, I've learned my lesson from Elise Pereira last week. There is no such thing as a WMMA prospect at women's bantamweight. The last time that we got so lucky as to see something like that happen was Kayla Harrison. And I do not think that Montague is going to be another Kayla Harrison type fighter. She's 6-0. She's winning fights against girls who also have single digit records, and they also have losses to all of them. She has a 100% finish rate in PFL as well, finishing all of her fights via RNC, which just means that her opponents are bad, dude. I mean, Luana Carolina, her last 3 fights that she won are against Julia Stoliarenko, Ivana Petrovic, and Lucy Pudilova. I think that Ivana Petrovic, out of those 3 women that I've just named, is the only one in the UFC who's actually still active in the roster. The other 2 have been cut. The same goes for all the women that she's lost to in her career in the UFC as well. She got KO'd stiff by Molly McCann, knee-barred by Ariane Lipsky, and she lost a split decision to Joanne Wood, and none of those 3 girls are in the UFC anymore. Not because they were cut, some of them retired, but some of them were cut too. I just have love scars from the Elise Pereira stuff, dude. It's going to take me a long time to recover. I'm not going to pick Michelle Montague to win her decision. I know that she's from New Zealand. There's an Oceania continent event. Luana Carolina is going to get this done by experience. She's a ranked fighter in this division. That's got to count for something, dude. This girl is 6-0, all RNC finishes, fighting 3-1, 2-1, 4-2 fighters, dude. No way Luana Carolina makes the organization look as bad as she would by losing this fight via another rear naked choke from Montague. So I'm going to predict that Luana Carolina wins this via round 3 submission. I think that Michelle will make it pretty deep into the fight before she does get finished, but I think that it'll come. So that's what I'm going to predict. The next fight is going to be Jamie Mullarkey versus Rolando Bedoya at lightweight. Rolando Bedoya was a 5'9" welterweight at one point. He got fried up by Song Kinan, Chaos Williams, and then he decided, maybe I should be a lightweight. So he cuts down to 155 and then loses a fight to Jai Herbert. And Jai Herbert's 40. And he is still a pretty tricky kickboxer, all things considered. But, he's 40 years old. And he got beat up badly by Jai Herbert. I'm not going to be overthinking things a lot like I did for the Mexico card. This is an Oceania UFC event in Australia. Mullarkey is Australian. Every so often, whenever he's fighting on an Australia card, they'll give him like a John Makdessi type fighter or a Rolando Bedoya like they're doing right now. And he'll beat these guys. This is a very winnable fight for Jamie Mullarkey. Mullarkey has been finished a lot, but it's always by a fighter who you can recognize. Hakparas, Naimov, Hoofy, Jalen Turner. He also got decision by Brad Riddell and Faraz Ziem. But on the other hand, this guy has beaten Makdessi, who's like around the same caliber of a fighter as Rolando Bedoya. He's beaten Michael Johnson in 2022 as well, the coin flip fighter who is just recently beaten Daniel Zellhuber, who's like a proper prospect. And he beat Francisco Prado in 2023, and that's a pretty solid win, all things considered. Jamie Mullarkey is going to win this fight via decision because they're hand-feeding him here, and that's what he's supposed to do. The script writers called me on this one, and they were like, yo, select Jamie Mullarkey in your predictions. Aye, Captain. So yeah, Jamie Mullarkey via decision in this fight. Colby Thicknesse versus Josias Musasa. So what do we have here? We have Josias Musasa, who just got Musasa'd up by Carlos Vera in his UFC debut. They were glazing him so hard in the announcement table as well during this fight as he was getting one of the best knockouts of the entire year. I still think that Carlos Vera had the best knockout of this entire year over Josias Musasa. I don't think that anybody's landed a cleaner knockout. It's just not very high profile. But the clip itself was magnificent. And I go back and still watch it to this day because it was so nice. And Colby Thicknesse, in his debut, fought one of the most highest touted prospects in this weight class, the brother of the literal final boss of MMA, Elliot Taporia. And, he made it to a decision against that guy. He got beat up, but it wasn't like completely, it was pretty one-sided. It wasn't completely one-sided to the point where it was like humiliating and we're thinking about cutting this guy and now like he wasn't defending himself. He was in there, I guess. Just got beat up. Josias Musasa, on the other hand, I was looking through this guy's record, just trying to see if he's fought anybody notable. This guy is the most padded record I've ever seen in my life. This guy got to 5-0 undefeated in like his 4th fight, fighting guys who are making their MMA debuts, 0-1 fighters, 3-0 fighters who don't even compete anymore. Vera isn't even the highest level fighter at this weight class, and he still exposed Josias Musasa with pretty minimal effort. I think this is another free win for the home team. Colby Thicknesse built his name off of being a protege of Volkanovski. I think that he's going to win this fight with around the same level of ease that Carlos Vera won this fight with. So yeah, give me that Colby Thicknesse round 1 TKO here. We're going to move right on to the next fight. All right, so now we got Cam Rowston versus Andre Petroski. Cam Rowston is notable for making this turnaround because he just got a contract off, I think it was like week 2 of the Contender Series, I think it was. It was the same week as Josh Hokett, I think it was. So yeah, he asked to be on the Perth card. They obliged him. I think that Andre Petroski at the middleweight division is kind of taken over the mantle of Cody Brundage, being this meat-headed grappler where they test your aptitude. If you're a striker, they see if you at least have enough counter wrestling or takedown defense to be able to keep striking on the feet. And if you're a grappler, they give him as a test to see if you can out-grapple a guy with a pretty decent skill set in the wrestling with the jiu-jitsu. Petroski struggles exactly with this type of fighter who's going to be able to shuck off some takedowns and has good striking. Edmund Shabazian beat this guy by decision in his last fight, and we know how Edmund Shabazian tapers off in the third rounds of his fight. So, I mean, Petroski is going to struggle with those same cardio issues. Cam Rowston definitely got a fight that he can win pretty easily. If not via decision, this is a very finishable fighter as well. Petroski has a style of fighting that seems to be developed to beat grapplers who can't strike. He perfectly dismantled Rodolfo Vieira. With guys who have finishing capabilities, he has a solid level of durability, but he does get beaten up, and that always leaves him exposed to get finished. I don't really know, man, because as far as the grappling goes, Cam Rowston is a guy who did lose to Torres Finney before, and he got grappled for 15 minutes in that fight. Andre Petroski could take that same approach and win this fight. It was a horrible fight that Torres Finney won. Andre Petroski tends to like to try to stand up with the people that he does get in the cage with. The question also here is if Cam Rowston in a striking match could pace himself for 15 minutes. If he can, then he wins this fight, no problem. But like I said before, I think that Petroski is going to give Rowston a chance to knock him out that he will take. So give me that Rowston round 1 KO for this pick. Let's move on to the next scrap. That will be Jonathan Micallef versus Oban Elliot at welterweight. I like Micallef in this fight. Oban Elliot, it feels like he kind of sold me some wolf tickets in the past. After he knocked out Basil Hafez, it's crazy, man. Basil Hafez, like, he made Jack Della Maddalena go life and death with him, right? Crazy war that they had. It was a short notice fight that Basil Hafez took coming off of a regional promotion or just a smaller show than the UFC because, I mean, they're all smaller. But Basil Hafez was blasting gear, dude. The guy was sauced to the gills. Comes and he fights Jack Della Maddalena. They have a really close fight. Basil Hafez cycles off the gear. Looks like half of the fighter that he was in the JDM fight against Mickey Gall. Mickey Gall ends up losing that fight to Basil Hafez. Basil Hafez advances to get match made with Oban Elliot. Oban Elliot chins Basil Hafez brutally. So lineally, that means that Oban Elliot is a good fighter, is what I thought in my head, right? But coming off of the last performances of each of these guys, Oban Elliot had me pretty underwhelmed by his performance against Sakyan Koi. Oban Elliot, before he knocked out Basil Hafez, proved himself to be like a cardio grappler. He's winning most of his fights. Grappling is usually a part of his game plan, and he sticks to it and wins. Micallef, though, Sakyan Koi just kind of came and shut down that whole thing and out-grappled Oban Elliot and held him down for 15 minutes. And it was a boring fight, but I mean, he got completely dominated by Koi in that fight. So for him to get dwarfed like that in the wrestling, it just, I don't even know what to think about it. Micallef, he comes from a strong pedigree of being able to finish fights on the ground. Most of his wins are via submission. Even though he didn't wrestle Kevin Josette pretty much at all in their fight, he can grapple. So, I mean, that is something that he could probably rely on as a path to victory in his fight against Oban Elliot, if that is still a glaring weakness of his. Micallef, though, put hands on Kevin Josette whenever he did fight with him, though, in his debut. Kevin Josette made the fight competitive against Brian Battle at certain points before Brian Battle snowballed and pulled ahead. Micallef shut him down completely and dominated a 3-round decision. I think it's going to be more of the same thing from Micallef. His striking is actually really nice. I do like it. There's similar frames on Oban Elliot and Jonathan Micallef. Maybe it was just that Oban Elliot had like food poisoning or something. His stomach hurt whenever he was fighting with Sakyan Koi, and he's going to show up and look like the fighter that I thought he was going into that fight, but maybe it was the short notice replacement of opponents as well. He was aiming to fight Ramiz Brahimaj and then his opponents end up getting switched. There was like 4 different fights where opponents got switched over the course of like 2 weeks. That was like Billy Goff versus Ramiz Brahimaj that ended up getting produced from that. Jonathan, though, he's going to be getting the elemental buff from fighting in his home country. I'm not going to sleep on that ever again. This is going to amp him up. He's going to win this fight. Micallef via decision is what we're going to go with here. All right, the next fight, Loma Lookboonme versus Alexia Thainara. Alexia Thainara has 1 fight in the UFC. It's against Molly McCann. She beat up Molly McCann on the ground super easily and subbed her. Molly McCann has never had the strongest grappling. Loma Lookboonme also has never really had the strongest grappling. In the fights where Loma Lookboonme has lost, it's to grapplers who have either subbed her or wrestled her to a decision. Alexia Thainara, she has the ability that most women in the strawweight division do not have, which is one to hold women down. I would say that Thainara is one of the better wrestlers in this weight class. I can see her softening up Loma Lookboonme on the ground and opening her up for like a TKO victory or even a submission coming in any later round because it's going to take a little bit. Most grapplers at 115 aren't strong enough to hold women down and to keep them from like throwing up submissions like arm bars or triangle chokes off of their backs, and that's what ends up getting them into trouble. Grapplers who are strong enough to contain their opponents on the ground in this division usually get free wins. At the very least, are able to keep themselves out of danger so that there's no come from behind victory. The striking of Loma Lookboonme poses the largest threat for Alexia Thainara in this fight. I don't think that Thainara is going to even take the chance to be able to get outstruck on the feet. She's going to be shooting consecutively, and the shots are going to work. I think this is going to be a Thainara decision, maybe even a submission the same way that it came for her in her fight against Molly McCann in round 1 or 2. I think that a decision prediction is going to be safer, so I'm going to go with that here. The next fight that we're going to talk about is going to be Navajo Stirling versus Rodolfo Bellato at light heavyweight. Rodolfo Bellato, he's just been in that Flying Dutchman pocket dimension. Do you remember in the episode where Squidward is roasting the Flying Dutchman on his pirate ship? And so the Flying Dutchman picks up Squidward and he uses like the zipper and like the fabric of reality, and it opens up like the nightmare dimension. He throws Squidward in it and he's falling forever, just seeing like the most crazy shit behind him as he's just like perpetually free falling. The upkick of Paul Craig sent Bellato to this sphere, and he's just been chilling in like this purgatory ever since. Stirling is off a pretty mediocre 2-fight run against Ivan Urslan and Tuco Tokos. He could have finished both opponents, and they're going to continue to give him some like finishable opponents like Schizophrenia Bellato for him to get some clout off of knocking out cold until he actually starts doing it. I see Navajo Stirling, he's getting into like streaming and stuff. He's like streaming, he was streaming like the Oblivion remaster. I saw him like talking about fights and stuff. That could be cool as like a niche for him. He's doing IRL stuff as well. It could be a niche for him. Stay relevant aside from the fighting stuff. But dude, he could be knocking these guys out. So I want to see him start getting some KOs. Because, bro, Bellato is a guy who the organization gives to fighters just to see what they'll do to him. It's a dude who is very finishable. Even though I don't think he's properly lost a fight in the UFC. He won against Ior Peteria, drew against Jimmy Crute, and then a no contest against Paul Craig. Bellato is a guy that they give you as like a last resort if you're about to get cut. As like a IQ test to see how you do against a dude who is very beatable. This guy is just like a level 5 crook. So in theory, if they're giving him the fighters like Crute or like Paul Craig, who I would consider to be like the same caliber of opponent, in theory, an up-and-coming prospect in Navajo Stirling, even with a lack of finishing capabilities, for some reason, I think he should be able to figure this one out at the very least and get a finish here. But I'm still going to predict him winning via decision. I hope that he just knocks out Rodolfo Bellato, though, because he can do it. He's going to be in Australia, which is close to his home country of New Zealand. So hopefully he gets this done. I'm going to predict him winning nonetheless, just by decision, though. Another haka. Look at this Conor McGregor haka. Repost for 1,000 years of good luck, you guys. The Conor McGregor haka. To get us going on the main card, man, this main card is like, it's definitely a main card. The co-main event fell through, and guess what the co-main event was? Junior Tafa versus Ibo Aslan. Like Ibo Aslan, who just got beat up by Billy Elikana in the UAE, man. So yeah, to get us going, we have Justin Tafa versus Louie Sutherland. Louie Sutherland, he's a champion from a Great Britain circuit. I don't know the name of it. I didn't write it down. I'm not going to be the guy picking Tafa, any of the Tafas, to win a fight in the big 2025. I'm just not going to. We can't overlook how bad Taliesin Teixeira is and was proven to be in this division after he got a cheeky one over Justin Tafa that made us all think that it was something else. Of Justin and Junior, Justin Tafa is by far the worst Tafa brother. I'm not sure if he'll win another UFC fight again, dude. The thing that shows promise for Louie Sutherland is that he's 6'3", he's a blobberoni, but he's 6'3", so I mean he's not 6 foot even like Justin Tafa. He's distributing his weight a bit better, looks to be physically stronger than Justin Tafa. This guy has 8 knockout finishes, 2 decision wins, and all of his losses are by decision. So he's going to be fighting like he can't get knocked out, which might get him knocked out, but he's not going to have the durability issues of a Justin Tafa, who gets finished pretty regularly at this point. This should be easy pickings for a new contender at 265, and a win over Justin Tafa is all you really need to be considered a contender in the 265 division in the year of our Lord 2025. This guy's a Scot too, he's Scottish, so I'm going to be keeping an eye out for a funky accent in the Octagon interview. They better put a mic in front of that dude if he wins. Give me the Sutherland round 1 KO to get us going on the main card. This is actually probably going to be a pretty good fight. Tom Nolan versus Charlie Campbell at lightweight. These guys are both Dana White's Contender Series veterans. Tom Nolan is the guy who knocked out Bogdan Grad in his first attempt at getting a contract on the Contender Series. Charlie Campbell is the dude who had the fight with Chris Duncan where he came back on after he was dropping Chris Duncan all over the octagon. Chris Duncan sits down on, I think it was like a left hand or something, just knocks out Charlie Campbell and just wings him completely. One of the craziest moments in the series. I mean, he lost that fight, but I mean, it didn't go without him having his big moments there. Charlie Campbell, though, he comes from a really good stable, trains with Sarah Longo, certified gym. Ray Longo is a GOAT. His system is relatively straightforward. Charlie Campbell, he invests into a low kick, stuff shots, and whenever his opponent starts switching stances because they're getting their calf or their leg ate up, that's whenever he starts shooting his own takedowns. The wrestling usually works for him whenever he tries it. Nolan does the same thing, but he mixes his targets better and doesn't heavily invest into one part of the body. It's really just whatever's open. He's more active with his boxing, but overall he controls like the grappling sequences worse than Charlie Campbell does. So that's also worth considering. This fight either seems like Charlie Campbell soundly controlling Tom Nolan on the ground to a decision, or Tom Nolan sparking Charlie Campbell out in rounds 1 or 2. In their last fights, though, Charlie Campbell beat Trevor Peek, and he did it with the grappling. And Tom Nolan fought Vyacheslav Borslev, and he did a good job on the feet of keeping him at bay, and he took him into the later rounds of this fight, where he ended up starting to get grappled himself. So I'm going to weigh that here. I think that Charlie Campbell's path to victory is going to be diligently sticking to a grappling game plan. Tom Nolan ended the fight on his back in the 3rd round against Vyacheslav Borslev. Campbell can force Tom Nolan to gas out, and he will be able to do whatever he wants at that point, which will just be smudge Nolan into the canvas. So give me a Campbell decision here. I will be picking against an Australian fighter on the main card, which is risky, but he's American, so I'm going to do it. USA, USA. This should be a really good fight. Jake Matthews versus Neil Magny at welterweight. All right, so tons of experience on both fighters. Neil Magny is my boy. He's my boy. And sometimes he does get lucky and get a dub. I mean, lucky is like kind of suggestive because, I mean, he's really good. Just in general, he's really good. And if you don't have a very well-rounded skill set, or specifically if you have a glaring hole in your game that is the grappling, that's a clear path to victory for Neil Magny. Or if you have cardio issues as well. Jake Matthew just hasn't really displayed that he does have cardio issues, and his grappling is probably like his best aspect as well. He'll be in his home country too. Neil Magny, he got a dub over Mike Malott in Canada, and that was because Mike Malott's grappling isn't up to par, and he also has cardio issues too. I don't think that he'll run into the same opportunities to win the way that he won against Mike Malott against Jake Matthews in Australia. So this is kind of where the buck stops, in my opinion. Zaleski dos Santos was out grappling Neil Magny in the early going in this fight, but he didn't pace himself properly, and so he gassed out, and they were at a standstill in a clinch. Neil Magny found the opportunity to land some elbows to the head of Zaleski dos Santos and was able to finish the fight from there, set up a TKO victory. Jake Matthews has better pacing, so I don't think he's going to leave himself open to get finished in a sequence like this later on into the fight just because he's tired. He's going to stay on the grappling, and he's probably going to do a better job of controlling Neil Magny than Neil Magny is going to do a good job of controlling Jake Matthews, which will result in Matthews winning this fight via decision. Magny has made proper contenders out of many 170s. I think it's Jake Matthews' turn after he's been on a pretty cool 3-win streak. He'll initiate this by participating in the Neil Magny blood ritual in his backyard, which is sacrificing him on one of these grand stages on the main card of one of these country events. If Neil Magny wins, dude, I'm going to be so happy, dude. Oh my gosh, I'll be so happy. All right, so the next fight is going to be Jimmy Crute versus Evan Ersan at light heavyweight. So I had mentioned it before that Jimmy Crute and Navajo Stirling, they're fighting a lot of the same opponents because there just simply aren't enough light heavyweights in this division to rebuild old veterans or to build up new prospects. So there's going to be overlap. It's very possible that if Jimmy Crute does win this fight and Navajo Stirling wins his fight, that they end up fighting each other. Jimmy Crute, he kind of fights like he is also an up-and-coming contender. With the way that they were pacing him towards the top of the division, they didn't really know how good the people that they were matchmaking him with as he was moving up towards the rankings would end up being. He fought Anthony Smith in 2021, which, I mean, that's a hard fight at that period at least. That's a veteran, dude. That guy's going to beat a lot of people just on experience alone. And then after he lost that fight to Anthony Smith, they gave him Jamal Hill to fight, like a sprawling Jamal Hill who was up and coming as well, which, I mean, they weren't doing him any favors in that, and he got knocked out. Fighting with Prachnio to come back after following his draw against Alonzo Minifield was a good call. And now fighting Evan Ersan, I think, is another good decision for him to have made as well. I think he needs to take a couple more fights after this just to win. Just so that he can, like, develop and mature in this organization, since he was never really properly given the opportunity to do that. They should let him can crush and then put him up against guys like Bogdan Guskov or Billy Elikana. I think that Crute should be able to dominate this fight in the grappling if Kutalaba and Stirling also had their moments in being able to contain Evan Ersan on the ground whenever they tried wrestling him. So I think that Crute, sticking to his wrestling, using his jiu-jitsu, will be able to submit Evan Ersan in round 2 of this fight, maybe even round 1 if he's feeling froggy, which he just might be since they are in Australia again. So I guess this is our co-main event now, Jack Jenkins versus Ramon Tavares at featherweight. Ramon Tavares is a featherweight now. He had first fought Serhiy Sidey and also Davy Grant at bantamweight. I don't think this is going to matter that he's added 10 pounds. This is another freebie win for Jack Jenkins to bounce back after losing to Gabriel Santos. Gabriel Santos, he's pretty good at fighting. I do like watching his fights back. He's pretty good at jiu-jitsu. His striking is pretty crisp as well. Lost to David Onama via knockout, which is like, I mean, I guess there's worse people to lose to via knockout. David Onama can crack, but I wasn't expecting it to happen to Jack Jenkins, him getting finished in that fight. This is a way for him to rebound. Ramon Tavares trying another division. It's not like he's going to be like particularly undersized for featherweight, but Jack Jenkins is a tricky striker like Davy Grant, like Serhiy Sidey. Serhiy Sidey was robbed in that fight, and then Davy Grant just beat the crap out of Ramon Tavares. So I think that the leg kick, the setups on the feet are going to prove to be effective for Jack Jenkins. He will be able to score with those. He will be able to win this fight, being tricky the same way that those two fighters were able to find success in their fights with Ramon Tavares. Jack Jenkins has really nice low kicks. He's displayed an ability to even stop fights with his low kicks in the past. The only thing to watch out for is the residual effects of like a really bad shoulder injury that Jack Jenkins has sustained in a fight against Shep Mariscal. Shep Mariscal, he landed a throw from a whizzer lock that he had wrapped up on Jack Jenkins. Jack Jenkins' shoulder completely dislocates and his arm is just like limp on the ground. He's laying like this. They had to like get him up out of there. It was really bad. He took a layoff after this, so maybe that rears its head as an issue that he starts having in the fight. It didn't look like it was bothering him particularly in his fight against Gabriel Santos. He just looked outmatched towards the end of the fight and he got tired. I think this is a freebie that he's getting to get back on track in front of an Australian crowd. Ramon Tavares is fried in this fight. I think that he loses to Jack Jenkins via round 2 TKO here. And that is going to be my prediction onto that main event. My first inclination here is either going to be a Reyes KO or an Olberg decision. Olberg's last fights that he's been winning against Jan Blachowicz and also Volkan Ozdemir have been looking like sparring matches, but he's been winning them. Dominic Reyes seems like he's down to fight or die in there, and he's not trying to go to decision. It's just that I think that Ozdemir and Blachowicz, even if they're not finishes from Oberg, are better quality wins than any of the fights that Reyes has been winning on this streak that he's been on. Maybe Krylov by knockout rivals one of these, but I mean, that win hasn't aged the best. I mean, it's down to Krylov making such a short turnaround against Guskov and getting knocked out again, but I don't trust Dominic Reyes to win fights like this again yet. If I'm wrong about it, then that just kind of is what it is. I just don't trust him to win these types of fights anymore. And I most certainly don't trust him to be able to replicate that type of knockout that he landed over Nikita Krylov against this caliber of opponent. Not on a consistent basis, at least. Even though, I mean, Lightning did strike twice. He knocked out Dustin Jacoby, and then he also knocked out Nikita Krylov in similar fashion. But I need to see him do it at least like 2 more times before I'm like, okay, this guy is just the knockout dude in this division. Oberg has a really nice jab and leg kick, long, rangy city kickboxer. I mean, it's kind of like their trademark. He prevents fights from turning into brawls. And Dominic Reyes is a guy who kind of capitalizes on people's aggressions. They think that he's a sitting duck, so they come out and try to bulldoze him. Fighters like Dustin Jacoby, fighters like Nikita Krylov. He won't be able to catch Carlos Oberg lunging in unless he does a really high-level setup and he baits it out of Carlos Oberg. Carlos Oberg is going to stay disciplined in the game that he likes to play. He's going to fight his fight. It's going to work. It's just going to spar with Dominic Reyes. Whenever Oberg does let his hands go and starts throwing his straight right, it does hit people pretty hard. This does kind of seem like a toss-up, but all things considered, they're in Australia. Oberg is off of momentum and has never been on a downward spiral like Dominic Reyes. Dominic Reyes has just kind of earned his respect back, and people view him as one of the top fighters in this division again after a long hiatus where he was getting finished by Ryan Spann. I mean, we're definitely not talking about the same fighter whenever we mention Dominic Reyes in 2025. I just don't think that I have that same level of faith in him that I did post. I mean, whenever I was considering that he would beat Jan Blachowicz for the vacant title in 2020, I don't think it's going to go like that. So, Oberg via decision is going to be my official prediction for the main event of this fight card. And I was getting all of these picks together, and I was thinking about, like, you guys remember Harry Hunsucker? Sounds like an insult that you would call someone on a playground. Fucking, you Harry Hunsucker? But no, dude, that's that guy's, like, his mother held him in her arms whenever he was born and was like, you're my little Harry Hunsucker. So yeah, those are going to be my predictions for this week, all written down right there. Next week, we got Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev, the rematch, baby. So let me know in the comment section, is it Shama or is it no Shama big Ankh time? Let me know. Leave a comment if you think that boy, Alex Pereira, is about to slide. I really don't know, man. It's going to be fun to break down that card next week. We got Marab and Corey Sandhagen pulling up as well for that. So I'm excited to watch that event for sure, you guys. So please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you made it to this point in the video. I'm going to catch you fellas in the next one. Peace out.